Back to another fun-filled video for World Cultures. Today we're going to be talking about the geography, areas, and climate of Asia. As the largest and most populous continent, it shares central continental landmass with Eurasia and has very similar climates. Now, as far as this geography goes, it's kind of weird because of that connection between both Europe and Africa, and if you think about it, Oceania as well, right? Here you can see the different climate types. You've got from highland up here in the Himalayas, which the climate kind of varies. It can be more tundra, it can be more continental. It depends on where it's at. You have some ice cap and tundra up here in the Arctic. You've got continentals with very short, cool summers. You've got some with a shorter summer. You've got longer summers. You've got rainy, sun, humid summers. You've got just about anything and everything that you can imagine all throughout the different areas. Plus, you also have desert. So it just depends on where you're at. China has cold deserts. So everyone always thinks of deserts as being hot, but they're not all hot. You've got the Taklamakan and the Gobi in China that are cold deserts. You've got the Atacama Desert, which is in the Andes in South America, which is also a cold desert. They're not hot at all. In the tropics, hot, humid most of the year. You have basically a lot of rain. You get the monsoon season in which they can get 400 inches of rain in just a couple of months. Some of these areas get up to 1,000 inches of rain per year, so a lot. Because of its distance from the main water bodies, then that makes it change quite a bit as well, because the daytime and nighttime temperatures can have a huge difference in the temperatures themselves, and you get a lot of seasonal differences as well, although it doesn't stay cold for very long, and it rarely, if ever, snows. The Asian deserts, as I mentioned, there's some of them that are cold. Nearly half of China is a desert. A lot of people always think of China as being this big country with lots of people in it, but only 10% of the land is arable, meaning they can only farm about 10% of the land. And that's where most of the population lives also. The rest of China is mountains and deserts. It's not very hospitable at all. You've got the Gobi Desert in Inner Mongolia. You've got further west, you've got some low and mid altitudes there in Xinjiang and Gansu. These are sand deserts as opposed to the Gobi, which is more of a rock kind of desert. And I don't mean big rocks, I mean smaller kind of gravel rocks, which is, funnily enough, the Sahara is as well. The Sahara is not a sand desert. Depends on your how high you are, your altitude. Lots of plateaus. So you're going to get summer heat, but it's not quite as bad because of the altitude. In the Middle East, though, that's a completely different beast. Okay, very hot, very dry, and it doesn't change. Even in the winter, the temperatures are cooler, right? 50 to 57 degrees. You get just a little dab of rain, but not a lot. It's not too awful bad as far as humidity for part of the year, but during the summer months, the humidity can get pretty bad here because it's right there located between the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean. So they get a lot of moisture, but it just dries out as it comes over this region. And once upon a long time ago, this used to be a tropical region, but over time it has become sand. Moderate climate, only a small area of Asia. Very much a microclimate because of the different elevations that you have. The different coastlines depends on if they're near a river and a big lake, or one of the seas, or one of the oceans. So the coast of the Black Sea is colder than the Mediterranean because it is more inland. But the interior has cold, snowy winters and hot, dry summers. When I was in Wuhan, it got very, very hot. It did not get as cold there as it does here. And they didn't get anywhere near as much snow as we normally get. But and in Hangzhou, it was even a little more tempered. It wasn't near as hot. But Hangzhou is also very near the ocean, so that made a difference. Polar Asia, not a lot of people live there. These areas in the Himalayas, as well as along the Arctic coast, you're not going to have a lot of people that live there. They're not going to be messing up with the environment and so forth. Very short summers, and the soil never thaws below a depth of 2 to 3 feet. That is changing somewhat because of the climate change. Highlands on forest, steppe vegetation. You get semi-desert and desert further to the south. On the Mongolian plains, the steppes, which the steppes is just what we would consider the plains. It's just a grassy plain. That's where the Mongols began and started their empire. Resources, a little bit of everything. Japan has no coal, iron, or heavy metals, but they have a lot of aluminum and food. China has uranium, iron, gold, coal, rice, and silicon, but short on water. Then you've got India with coal and iron, but have a food shortage. So everybody has a little bit of everything, and those resources have kind of helped to define them. However, the shortages of what define them more often, particularly in China, because if you look at the famines and so forth there, a popular greeting is "Ni qie ma," which means "Have you eaten today?" And it means that you care enough about a person to ask if they've actually eaten today, because during the famines and during many times throughout Chinese history, a family member or a friend may not have had an opportunity to eat that day. And so you would want to help them out and make sure that they had eaten. I thought that was the weirdest thing when the first time someone said that to me, and I'm like, yes, I've eaten. Thank you very much. Do I look like I missed many meals? And they laughed and explained to me why that was that was a greeting and why it was important to them. So after that, I only said, yes, thank you for asking, because it meant that they cared about me, that they were concerned about me. And plus I knew that I could not eat spicy things, and a lot of Chinese food is very, very spicy. Boo house, no good.